Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive.
Yeah.
Today, we're going to be looking at Do You Love You?
Mm-hmm.
Which is a really fascinating piece about how self-love can
Yeah.
really have a huge impact on your relationships.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're hoping this deep dive will help you all listening
Mm-hmm.
build relationships that are healthy and fulfilling.
Yeah.
And get this, did you know that
That was a good one.
those really intense feelings that you feel at
Yeah.
the beginning of a relationship
Yep.
might actually be your brain kind of playing tricks on you?
Yeah, that's true. The source talks about that. It's really interesting.
Okay, so let's get into that a little bit.
Yeah.
So the source kind of presents this idea that relationships
Mhm.
can be these really powerful teachers,
Yeah, absolutely.
showing us what we're attracted to, what our buttons are.
Like what we're drawn to, what we absolutely can't stand, right?
Yeah.
And ultimately, how strong our sense of self is.
It's like each relationship is a crash course in you.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But one of the things the source mentions is that
Hmm.
sometimes we can even lose ourselves in a relationship.
Oh, yeah.
And I think a lot of people listening have probably felt that
Definitely, yeah.
at some point in their lives.
For sure.
So why does that happen?
Well, think about it. When you think about the early stages of a relationship, like the butterflies,
Yeah.
the excitement,
Oh, yeah.
all the newness.
The new relationship energy.
Yeah. Your brain is flooded with all these chemicals,
Huh.
dopamine, oxytocin.
Yeah.
It's basically like a biological cocktail
Mhm.
designed to make you feel intensely connected to this new person.
So it's like Mother Nature's way of getting us all coupled up.
Well, yeah, I guess you could say that.
But-
But the source is saying this chemical rush can be deceiving.
Oh, okay. So it's not all
Yeah.
sunshine and roses.
Not necessarily. It can trick you into thinking like, oh my gosh, this is the one.
Right.
When in reality, you might not actually be compatible long term. And that's why the source keeps coming back to this question.
Okay.
Like, do you love you?
Okay, so that is such a simple question,
It is.
but it feels so loaded,
It's a
Because like what makes it so important, especially
Yeah.
before we even start thinking about finding a partner.
Well, think of it this way. Self-love is like the foundation
Okay.
for every decision that you make, especially in relationships.
Right.
I mean, if you don't value yourself, you might unconsciously be choosing partners who don't value you either.
That's really interesting.
It's like you're sending out a signal that says, this is the level of respect that I'll accept.
It's almost like we're attracting what we think we deserve.
Yeah, exactly.
But doesn't it take two to tango? Like,
Sure.
what if someone genuinely seems amazing and then they
Yeah.
turn out to be totally different?
You're right. It's not always black and white.
Right.
But the source argues that when you have a strong sense of self-love, you are much better equipped to recognize red flags. And you're more likely to walk away from those situations that aren't serving you.
This is like self-love is this internal alarm system
Yeah, kinda, yeah.
that helps us spot trouble from a mile away.
I like that. That's a good way to put it.
What are some red flags we should be looking out for?
Well, the source mentions a few.
Okay.
Pay attention to how someone treats other people, especially people that they don't have to impress. Like, do they belittle their family? Do they talk down to wait staff?
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Those can be signs of deeper issues.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, for sure.
And also, watch out for any inconsistencies between their words and their actions.
Okay.
Like, do they promise you the world but never actually follow through?
Right. So actions speak louder than words.
For sure.
But what if you're already in a relationship
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, maybe I've been overlooking some red flags?
Yeah,
Can you build self-love while you're in a relationship?
absolutely. It's never too late to start prioritizing your own well-being. And the source actually has some exercises and techniques
Oh, okay.
for cultivating self-love,
Mhm.
which we can dive into later.
That's great to hear because
Yeah.
I think sometimes people assume that if they're not happy with their relationship,
Yeah,
the only option is to break up.
right.
But maybe it's an opportunity to work on yourself
Hmm.
and the relationship.
Absolutely, yeah. And that brings us back to this idea of relationships as teachers.
Okay.
I mean, even challenging relationships
Mm-hmm.
can teach us really valuable lessons about ourselves and our needs and our boundaries.
So even if a relationship doesn't last forever, it can still serve a purpose in our journey of self-discovery.
Yeah,
That's a really hopeful perspective.
it is. And it ties into the source's emphasis on knowing what you want in a relationship,
Mhm.
which is just as important as knowing what you want in life.
It's like you wouldn't go grocery shopping without a list, right?
Exactly. You need to know what you're looking for. before you can actually find it.
And that's why the source really encourages us to
Yeah.
be super clear about our values, our goals,
Right.
and our non-negotiables in
Absolutely.
a relationship.
Yeah.
So if self-love is the foundation,
Yes.
knowing what we want is like the blueprint
I like that. That's a good
for
analogy.
building a healthy relationship.
That's a great way to put it. And once we have that blueprint, we can start making choices that are aligned with our vision.
Okay.
We can start saying yes to the things that bring us joy
Yes.
and no to the things that drain our energy.
I love that. So it sounds like we're talking about taking control, of our
Yeah.
lives and our relationships.
Absolutely.
Which is so empowering to think about.
Mhm.
But I imagine that putting this into practice is where it can get a little tricky.
Oh, for sure. It's not always easy.
Right.
But, the source offers some really practical tools
Okay.
to help us with this process. So, for example, they suggest creating a list
Okay.
of your must-haves and your deal breakers in a partner.
So instead of just going with the flow,
Yeah.
we're actually being intentional about what we're looking for.
Exactly. Yeah. Be intentional.
I like that.
And, the source even suggests
Yeah.
rating yourself on a scale of 1 to 5
Okay.
on statements about your values and how you want to be treated in a relationship.
Okay.
So, for example, one of the statements is,
Okay.
my partner supports my growth and encourages me to pursue my dreams.
Ooh, that's a good one.
How would you rate yourself on that statement?
I think I'd give myself a solid 4.
Okay.
I definitely value partners who support my ambitions, but maybe I could be
Yeah.
even better at communicating my needs
Yeah.
and expectations.
That's great insight. I love that.
Yeah.
It's not just about finding the right partner.
Right.
It's also about being the right partner
Right. So
for yourself and for someone else.
it's a two-way street.
It is. It's,
We need to be clear about our own needs. Yeah.
but also be receptive to the needs of our partner.
Absolutely. And the source dives even deeper, asking us to reflect on how we've been treated in past relationships,
Oh, interesting.
which can be a powerful exercise in recognizing patterns and understanding what we might be repeating.
It's funny you say that because
Yeah.
the source also talks about how we tend to attract what we think we deserve.
Yeah.
Do you think that applies to
Oh, absolutely.
how we allow ourselves to be treated
100%.
in relationships?
Yeah. If we don't believe that we're worthy
Yeah.
of respect and love,
Mhm.
we might unconsciously accept behavior that we wouldn't tolerate
Right.
from a friend or a colleague,
Yeah.
It's like we have these internalized beliefs about what we deserve, and those beliefs can really shape our relationships.
So if someone has consistently been in these relationships
Yeah.
where they've been taken for granted
Mm-hmm.
or mistreated,
Yeah.
that might be a sign that they really need to work on their own. For sure.
That's self-worth.
Absolutely. And the source emphasizes that change is possible, but it takes effort
Okay.
and a willingness to really look inward. And they even use this really powerful analogy.
Okay, I like analogies.
Okay, so do you know how many therapists it takes to change a light bulb?
Ooh, I don't know how many.
Only one. But the light bulb has to really want to change.
Oh, I love that. That's so true.
But
You can't force someone to change.
You can't.
They have to be motivated to do it themselves.
Exactly.
And I think that applies to ourselves as well.
Mhm.
We can't expect to have healthy relationships if we're not willing to change the patterns that might be holding us back.
Absolutely. That's such a key point. And this leads us to another important aspect of building self-love,
Okay.
which is accepting ourselves for who we are, flaws and all.
It's like embracing the whole package.
Yes,
Not
exactly.
just the parts that we like.
The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Right.
But, that can be really hard.
Yeah, I imagine so.
Especially in a world where we're constantly bombarded with messages about how we should look, how we should act, and how we should think.
Yeah, it's tough out there.
It is.
Yeah.
But the source reminds us that we are all unique and perfectly imperfect in our own ways. It's about recognizing our strengths
Yeah.
and acknowledging our weaknesses without judgment.
So instead of trying to be someone we're not,
Yeah,
it's about celebrating who we are.
exactly.
But
Yeah.
what if there are things about ourselves that we genuinely want to change?
Yeah,
How do we approach that
that's a great question.
without falling into that trap of
Yeah.
self-criticism?
Right, and that's where self-compassion comes in.
Okay.
It's about treating ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we would offer a friend who's struggling.
Right.
It's about recognizing that we're all works in progress.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Okay, so it's about being gentle with ourselves
Yeah,
while still striving to grow and evolve.
exactly. It's a balance, right?
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense.
And the source emphasizes that self-love is a journey, not a destination.
Hmm.
It's something that we cultivate over time through self-reflection,
Yeah.
self-care, and a willingness to be kind to ourselves.
It's like we're constantly learning and growing,
Yes,
both in our relationships with others and in our relationship with ourselves.
absolutely. And as we continue to grow in self-love,
Yeah.
we'll find that we attract relationships that reflect that love and respect.
It's like raising the bar.
It is. It's like raising the bar for what we're willing to accept.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
hopefully inspiring others to do the same.
Yeah, lead by example, right?
Yeah. So how do we start putting all of this into action?
Well, the source suggests taking small steps.
Okay.
It could be as simple as starting each day with a positive affirmation,
Okay.
setting aside time for an activity that you enjoy,
Yeah.
or simply acknowledging your accomplishments
Mm-hmm.
and giving yourself credit for your efforts
So it's about making a conscious effort. Yeah.
to prioritize our well-being,
Mm-hmm.
both physically and emotionally.
Absolutely. And I think that's something we can all benefit from,
Yeah,
whether we're in a relationship or not.
absolutely. And
Mm.
speaking of deserving,
Yeah.
the source also touches on the importance of setting boundaries.
Yes. Such a crucial aspect of self-love.
So why is that so important?
Well, boundaries are essential
Okay.
for protecting our energy and emotional well-being.
Okay.
When we have healthy boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
we're communicating to others
Right.
how we expect to be treated. It's about knowing what we're comfortable with
Yeah.
and what we're not,
Right.
and being able to articulate that clearly.
So it's about standing up for ourselves.
Yeah,
And not letting people walk all over us.
absolutely.
But how do we do that without
Yeah,
feeling guilty
that's a great question.
or selfish?
Sometimes we feel guilty about setting boundaries.
Because we've been conditioned to believe that we should always put others' needs before our own.
Right. Yeah, I can see that.
But the source reminds us that taking care of ourselves is not selfish.
Okay.
It's essential.
Mm.
When we're depleted and burnt out,
Yeah.
we can't show up fully for ourselves
Right.
or for the people we care about.
It's like that saying,
Yeah.
you can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly. Exactly.
And setting boundaries
Yeah.
allows us to fill our own cup so we have something to give
Yes.
to others.
It's about recognizing that we have a right
Mm-hmm.
to our own time, our own energy, and our own emotional space.
So it's about being assertive, but also being respectful
Absolutely.
of ourselves and others.
Yeah, finding that balance.
Right.
And the source offers some practical tips
Okay.
for setting boundaries.
Mm.
Like they suggest using I statements,
Mm.
being clear and direct in your communication,
Right.
and practicing saying no.
Ooh, that's a hard one,
It is for a lot of people.
especially for people pleasers.
It's really, yeah.
But it sounds like setting boundaries
Mm.
is crucial for building
It is.
healthy relationships
Yeah.
with ourselves and with others.
Absolutely. And when we set boundaries, we're not just protecting ourselves.
You're right.
We're also teaching others how to treat us.
Okay.
It's about creating a dynamic of mutual respect and understanding.
So it's like we're modeling healthy behavior
Yeah,
where the people around us.
Exactly. And hopefully they'll start to set boundaries for themselves as well.
Right. And then everybody's happy.
Exactly. And when everyone is clear about their needs and expectations,
Mm.
it creates a much more harmonious
Yeah.
and fulfilling environment for everybody.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's like we're all working together to create this world where everyone feels seen, heard, and respected.
Absolutely.
But what about those times
Yeah.
when we inevitably mess up?
Yeah, because we're human.
Right. We're human. Like we set a boundary and then we feel guilty about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or we let someone cross a boundary and then we feel resentful.
Yeah.
How do we deal with those situations?
Well, it's important to remember that setting boundaries is a process. We're not going to get it right all the time.
Right.
There will be times when we slip up, and that's okay.
Mm.
It's an opportunity to learn and adjust our approach.
So it's about giving ourselves permission
Yes.
to make mistakes and learn from them.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's also important to remember that we're not responsible for other people's reactions to our boundaries.
Oh, okay.
If someone gets upset or tries to guilt us into changing our minds, that's on them, not on us.
That's such an empowering reminder.
It is.
It's not our job to manage other people's emotions.
That's not, no.
Our job is to take care of ourselves.
Absolutely. And when we do that,
Mm-hmm.
we're actually creating a ripple effect of positivity
Oh,
that can extend far beyond our own lives.
So we've talked about self-love, knowing what we want,
Mm-hmm.
setting boundaries.
Yeah.
Is there anything else
There is.
the source highlights as being essential
Yeah.
for healthy relationships?
Yes. Communication.
Communal.
Open, honest, and respectful communication is the foundation of any strong relationship.
Communication seems so obvious,
It does.
but I think it's one of those things that's easier said than done.
It is. It is.
What are some tips for communicating?
So the source suggests using I statements
Okay.
to express your feelings and needs
Mm-hmm.
without blaming or accusing the other person.
Right.
It's also important to be a good listener,
Okay.
to really try to understand the other person's perspective, even if you don't agree with it.
Right. So it's about being assertive, but also being empathetic.
Exactly. Finding that balance again, right?
Yeah.
And it's also important to choose the right time and place
Okay.
to have difficult conversations.
Mm-hmm.
So avoid having these conversations when you're feeling angry or exhausted.
Oh, good point.
Right. Find a time when you can both be calm and present.
Yeah, it's like creating a safe space for open and honest dialogue.
Exactly. And it's also important to remember that communication is an ongoing process.
Right. It's not a one-time thing.
It's not a one and done. No, it's
Yeah.
about checking in with each other regularly,
Yeah.
making sure you're on the same page,
Mm-hmm.
and addressing any issues that come up as they arise.
So it's about being proactive
Yeah.
and making communication a priority.
It is. In
throughout
the
relationship.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the source also emphasizes
Okay.
the importance of nonverbal communication.
Oh, interesting.
So paying attention to your partner's body language, tone of voice, facial expressions.
It's like we're tuning into all the different ways
Yeah.
that they're trying to communicate with us.
Exactly. And it's also important to be mindful of our own nonverbal communication.
Right. Okay.
Are we sending mixed messages with our body language?
Yeah.
Are we being attentive and engaged when our partner is talking?
Right. So it's about being present,
Yeah.
showing up for our partner.
Absolutely. And when we do that,
Yeah.
we're creating a deeper level of connection and intimacy.
And that brings us back to the beginning of our conversation about those initial feelings of infatuation.
Yeah.
How can we tell the difference
Oh, that's a good one.
between like genuine connection
Yeah.
and just a chemical rush?
I think one key difference is that genuine connection deepens over time.
Okay.
You know, it's not just about physical attraction
Yeah.
or shared interests.
Right.
It's about a sense of mutual respect, trust, and understanding.
So it's about
Yeah.
getting to know the person beyond the surface level.
Exactly. And it's about being willing to be vulnerable, to share our true selves with each other.
And that takes a certain level of self-awareness
It
and
does.
self-acceptance, right?
Absolutely. It's about recognizing our own strengths and weaknesses,
Mhm.
our hopes and fears, and being able to share those with someone who loves and accepts us for who we are.
That's such a beautiful vision of love.
Anything-
It's not about finding someone to complete us.
No,
It's about finding someone to share the journey with.
exactly. And the source reminds us that love is not a passive emotion.
Okay.
It's an active choice. It's something we choose to cultivate and nurture every day.
So it's not just about finding the right person. It's
Yeah.
about being the right person
Yes.
and making a conscious effort
Yeah,
to build a loving and fulfilling relationship.
it is. And that's something we all have the power to do.
Wow. It's amazing,
Yeah.
how this all comes back to taking responsibility
Yeah,
for our own happiness and well-being.
absolutely. Yeah.
It's not about waiting for someone else to
Right.
make us happy.
Nope.
It's about creating that happiness
Yeah.
within ourselves.
Absolutely. And when we do that, we're not only improving our own lives,
Right.
but we're also creating a more positive and loving world around us.
It's like we're all interconnected, right?
We are.
And the love that we give to ourselves,
Yeah.
it radiates outward.
It
to
does.
just everyone we encounter.
Absolutely. And speaking of interconnectedness,
Okay.
the source also touches on the importance of
Mm-hmm.
community and connection.
Okay.
And it's not just about our romantic relationships.
Right.
It's about cultivating
Yeah.
meaningful relationships with friends, family, and even colleagues.
So it's about building a support system
Yes,
of people who love and care about us.
exactly. Those relationships provide us with a sense of belonging,
Yeah.
support, encouragement, which are also essential for our well-being.
Yeah, it's like we're all part of this
Yeah.
web of relationships,
Mhm.
and each connection contributes to the strength
Absolutely.
of the whole.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to put it. And the source reminds us that we don't have to do this alone.
That's a good reminder.
There are so many resources available like therapy, support groups, and even online communities
Yeah.
where we can connect with others who are on a similar journey.
It can feel really overwhelming sometimes
Oh, for sure.
to try to figure everything out on your own.
Especially,
So it's nice to know that there's
yeah,
people out there who understand.
absolutely. And seeking help is not a sign of weakness.
Okay.
It's a sign of strength
Yeah.
and a commitment to our own well-being.
Well, as we wrap up our deep dive today
Yeah.
into Do You Love You?
Mm-hmm.
What are some key takeaways?
I think the most important message is that self-love is the foundation
Okay.
for everything. Our happiness, our well-being, our relationships.
Mhm.
When we love and value ourselves, we create this ripple effect
Yeah.
that touches every aspect of our lives.
We're setting a new standard,
We are.
not just for ourselves,
Yeah,
but for everybody around us.
exactly. And the source encourages us to remember that change is possible.
Okay.
We have the power to create the lives and the relationships that we desire. And it all starts with that simple but profound question.
Right.
Do you love you?
And if the answer isn't a resounding yes,
Yeah.
this deep dive has given you a roadmap for getting there.
It is a journey, not a destination.
Sure.
And every step that you take towards self-love
Yeah.
is a step towards a happier, healthier, and more fulfilling life.
I love that. And thanks everyone so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for listening.